Hello and welcome to my AutoCAD Civil 3D tutorial. In this video I will be using the Imperial Units version of AutoCAD Civil 3D. There's also a Metric Units version, but again I'll be using the Imperial Units because that's the one that I feel like using. Now first and foremost I'd like to talk about some similarities and differences with just the general layout with this as compared to just regular AutoCAD. You can see that the workspace looks very similar. We still have this grid lines. You can still see our trusty view cube, and we still have this ribbon on the top here. But you can also see there are some different things. On the side here, there are some extra tools, and also on the left here, there's this thing called the Toolspace, which is open by default and can be closed by clicking on this Toolspace thing up here, and it can be opened again by clicking it again. Additionally, on the ribbon, we can see some tabs that we're familiar with and also some new tabs. New tabs include Palettes, Create Ground Data, Create Design, and Profile and Section Views, while the Draw, Modify, Layers, and Clipboard tabs are essentially identical to the ones that we've seen in regular AutoCAD. Over the course of this video, I'll mostly be talking about the commands and features that are unique to Civil 3D, the ones found on the left side of the ribbon, and also over here in the Toolspace. Features such as pipe networks, the pressure networks, which are a function of pipe networks, corridors, and so on and so forth. The first thing I'd like to do is briefly talk about the Palettes tab up here. The Palettes tab can be used to either make modifications to your tool space or just open up new windows that you can use to interact with things you've created. So for instance, if I go to Palettes and drag it down, you can see that there are a bunch of new options down here. And what they'll mostly do is they'll pop up new windows that let you interact with the drawing in new ways. So you see there's a calculator, there's a markup set manager, and when you mouse over it'll give you a brief description of what the thing that you're about to open does. So for instance, if you open up the Layer Properties Manager, it just brings up the Layer Properties Manager that we're familiar with from other AutoCAD. And if I pull up this one over here, the coordinate tracker, you see it'll just track the coordinates of my mouse as I move it around the drawing. Additionally, there are these up here that you can use to change the tabs available on your tool space. So if I unselect Settings, you'll see the Setting tab goes away from the tool space, and if I reselect it, it comes back. Additionally, within the tool space, we can find any objects or things that we've created so far in Civil 3D. So for instance, you can see I've created a basic surface right here, which I'll get into how to do more later. But so if we come over to our tool space and we mouse down, we see the Surfaces option here. I can expand it out and you'll see that we have Surface 1, which is the name of the surface right here that I've created. And we can mess with its masks, we can add watersheds to it, and we can do all this other stuff here in details or in definition. Also in the tool space you can see there's the settings option, and within here we can see all of the settings available for us to mess with in relation to the drawing we're currently on. You can see there's an option for surface here, we can go down, there's options for alignment, just general options, so on and so forth for anything that we could do in Civil 3D. The tool space also has the survey option, which can be used to do actual surveys within Civil 3D of a surface that you might create. For instance, this one out here. Finally, we have the Toolbox tab of our tool space. This is mostly used for adding extensions, i.e. custom tools, onto Civil 3D, which for the purposes of this tutorial don't really matter, and I think I'm actually just going to turn off the Toolbox tab all the way. Alright, now we can get started. Next, I'd like to talk about the utilities located in the Create Ground Data tab up here in the ribbon. First, there's Import Survey Data, which we can click on, and it'll pop up this window, which you could use to import survey data if we had any, but I don't, so we can't use that. And next, we have points, as you can see here. Points can be made in a variety of ways, and points are stored as a type of thing called a COGO, or a Coordinate Geometry Unit. Points in this program can be used for all sorts of things, like the main purpose, of course, is making surfaces and specifying different kinds of surfaces, which we'll be talking about next. And as you can see, there are many different kinds of ways to make points. For instance, you can just use manual creation to pick any old random point. Doesn't need a description, and then you can give it an elevation. And in this way, you can manually make an elevation grid just using points on the grid, like that. Next, we have surfaces, as you can see here. And so surfaces are the most important thing here in Civil 3D. They're used to do almost everything. They contain elevation data, and so you can create contour maps out of them. So we come over here, and as you can see, this whole thing is made out of surfaces pretty much, except for these parts here, which are corridors, which we'll be getting to later. So it's showing a contour map of some roads coming through this area. Back to our first drawing. As you can see here, there are several different things we can do with surfaces. We can create our own surfaces just from scratch by default, or we have all these other options that we can use to create surfaces depending on the kind of data that we have available to us. For now, we'll just create a default surface. The kind of surface we're going to create is a TIN surface, which is something that we can work with easily. And once we've created our surface, if we pop out the surface menu here, you'll see all these surfaces. So the one we just created is called Surface 5. So in order to mess with our surface, we need to go to the Modify tab up here on the top of the ribbon. Then we want to say Modify a Surface. And we'd like to say Edit Surface, Add Point. So there are no surfaces currently on the map, so in order to add one, we need to press Enter to select from a list of possible surfaces. Surface 5 is the one we'd like to edit. And now, we can click anywhere we want to create points in the surface. Now, we might want to have lines or something to use as reference on here in the future, but for now, I can just click anywhere and create a surface. So I've clicked, and now that I've clicked, it wants the elevation of that point, so we'll say 0, it's like a base point. I'll click somewhere else, and we'll say an elevation of 10, and a third place, and say an elevation of 20. And as you can see, we've created a surface. There are these lines in it, they're contour lines basically, showing the grade, so if I click somewhere else, and make a really high grade, say 50, you can see these lines are much closer together, and this really hooks around like that, showing that the grade changes along a line right about there. And we can click somewhere else and do a really low grade, so like 10 again, and it comes back down quite quickly. And so on and so forth. You can do this as much as you want and create some really, really crazy looking surfaces. Alright everyone, the next thing I'd like to talk about are parcels. Parcel is a tool that you can use to designate certain areas of land. This is typically used for something like a subplot in a real estate map, or it could also be something like an area of soil or an area like a body of water. Now in this case, I'd like to create a parcel around this slot right here, lot 128, in this example drawing for Civil 3D. So what we do is we go to Parcel, go to Parcel Creation Tools, and you can see here there are a variety of tools that you can use for parcel. The one I'll be using is Add Fixed Line. But you can also use other tools, such as Add Fixed Curve 3 points and another one with radius, Draw Tangent, Slide Line, and so on and so forth down the line. But for this one, we're going to do, again, Add Fixed Line 2 points. We'd like to decide what site we're going to use, so I'll make a new site for this. We'll call it Test Site. As such, we'll say OK. And now we just outline the parcel that we'd like to create using lines. Now, a frustrating part of this is that it's not like a polyline. So you have to individually click twice for every line, and so if you're trying to designate a site, like I'll show in a second, But for this one, I right click and I exit. So now you see here, we've created a parcel around this slot right here, lot 1. It should be lot 120. I don't know why that's changed. Oh, because it's parcel 1. See, it's site 1. Right. But so if we go to parcel creation tools, and we decide that we want to just make a parcel out in the middle of nowhere, I'll create a new one. Test site 2. Okay. You see that we can't snap to it at all, and there's no way to click precisely on the edge of that, so I can try, but I'll never quite be able to make it, as you can see. So if you're going to be making sites, then it's in your best interest to draw lines beforehand using the draw tools up here. Next, I'd like to talk about a cool feature of this program. It's called a feature line. You can find it right up here. And what a feature line is it's very much like a polyline that you'd know from AutoCAD, in that it's a line, you make it, you pick site 1, you pick the style that you'd like to make. For ours, we can just do a basic feature line for right now. You say OK, and you click, and so there's an elevation associated with this line. So we'll say it's 10, then we'll go to an elevation of say 15, and an elevation of 5. No, wait, that means the distance of 5, then we'll say a grade of 5, and then an elevation of say 17. And so basically, this is like creating just an object that can be used later on in stuff like pipe networks or corridors, and you can create objects that have elevations associated with them thanks to the elevations that are associated with the feature line now. As you'll see in the next section, pipes, when I use a feature line to create a pipe network. Alright, so next I'd like to talk about creating pipe networks. A pipe network can be found up here under Create Design. You click on the drop-down list for pipe network, and then you just click Pipe Network Creation Tools. Now there are a couple different ways we can make pipe networks. We'll call our network Test Network. And now pipe networks can be used to create a variety of things, such as just pipes alone, or pipes with some structures on them, like manholes or just like a pump station, for instance. You can see up here we have our network, our pipe network creation window. You can choose what kind of structures to put on the ends of it, and you can also choose what kind of piping you would use. You see we have a few options, not too many options, but options nonetheless. I'll just stick with the default 12-inch concrete pipe. And now what we can do is we can just click on this thing right here to just start drawing pipes. And you see here, so it creates a structure right there at the point that you've clicked, and then you can just draw around. You can tell the length, so we'll do 100 feet of pipe, and then you see it ends in another structure, and we can just build it around, and that's just a basic pipe network. So then this way, clicking this button here, toggle upslope or downslope, toggles whether the pipe is sloping up or down, obviously. And you can change, so there's just these basic structures here. You can change what kind of structures that it uses. It doesn't change what it looks like, but it will change how it looks in 3D when you enable that, of course. So see, when I switched the upslope or downslope, it did this here, which created an up part of the pipe. And you see here when we're in 3D, they're cylindrical because they are pipes. And you can actually see that there's a bit of vertical displacement with these pipes just from me drawing them. So the program itself will actually simulate the what the pipes would need to look like in order for them to function properly. Something else we can do with pipe networks is we can create them from a feature line. So if we create a feature line real quick, just right here, just a nice simple one, we'll say it's an elevation of 10, down to an elevation of say 5, and then further down to an elevation of 0. We can now create a pipe network from an object, the object in this case being this here feature line. So we click on the feature line, and we say the flow direction is down, which makes sense because that's with gravity. And then we say, okay, we can change our structures, or we can change our concrete piping, as you see here. But that's fine for right now. So we'll say, okay. You see the structures that I made over here have appeared at the ends here, there, and there. And if we rotate, then you'll see that it's these 3D object pipes again. Another tool at our disposal here in AutoCAD Civil 3D is the assembly. The assembly is a thing that we can summon in order to help us create roads from the corridor command. So in order to create an assembly, we first must come up here to the tool palettes. First we must come up here to the tool palettes option found in the palettes tab and click on it. From here we can summon up all kinds of different assemblies. There's assemblies, imperial, basic, see here. There are lanes which are specifically made for creating roads, and a whole bunch of other kinds such as curbs, meridians, and so on. I'll just use very basic, just plain imperial assembly for now. And I'll summon it in right there. So you can see here we have our basic assembly. If we look at it in 3D, it's a flat object. Nothing special. However, if I return to the top of the view cube and I draw a feature line like such, so we'll say 10-foot elevation, 100 feet long, a grade of say 10. Now have a feature line. So the corridor command can be used to make basically highway sections out of an assembly like we have over here, and a feature line like I have here. So I'll close this, I'll select corridor, select our feature line, and we'll just call it road. Now you need to make sure that you select feature line, and you need to make sure that you have selected the feature line that you've drawn to serve as the feature line. And you'll be able to tell because it'll be called by the name of the line that you've drawn. Next you need to select your assembly. So since we've only got the one, it's basic assembly right there. You check set baseline and region parameters. You make sure everything else is good. You give it a nice name. I think I'll just call it road like the feature line. We'll say OK. This screen will pop up. We'll say OK again. It'll say this. You'll tell it to rebuild the corridor. And you see there, it has now created a road-like object out of this basic assembly. So if we rotate the map around, you'll see that it's on a slant because we told it to have a grade. It's at a elevation of 10 over here because that's what we put our feature line at. And it's just like a 3D object, like a road.